They taught you to be good, that being kind, honest, and fair would always come back to you. That if you just did the right thing, even when it hurt the world, would somehow reward your integrity. But maybe you've started to notice it doesn't. Maybe you've begun to feel like you're losing, not despite your goodness, but because of it. There's a quiet kind of heartbreak that lives in those who try to live right in a world that rewards power. You give without keeping score. You stand by your values even when it costs you peace. And in return, you're often met with betrayal, manipulation, silence. You're told to rise above. You're told to stay soft. But no one tells you what to do when your softness becomes the very thing they use to undo you. You begin to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Why do I feel like a target just for being decent? The truth is brutal, but it needs to be said. In a world built on illusion, your transparency makes you vulnerable. They can see exactly where you'll flinch. They know exactly what you'll never do. So they build their traps around those lines, and you, believing you're standing tall in your integrity, walk right into them. There's a name they used to call you. Too nice. Maybe they laughed as they said it. Maybe they meant it as a compliment. But over time, it began to feel like a warning. A quiet confession that people saw your kindness not as strength, but as leverage. You tell yourself you're just staying true to who you are. But deep down, you know it's not working. Not the way you hoped. And that dissonance, it eats at your spirit. I remember someone, let's call her Lena. She was the kind of person who never asked for anything. Always first to volunteer, last to leave. If you needed help moving, she was there. If you needed someone to talk to, she was all ears. She believed in fairness, in loyalty, in forgiveness. She had this unshakable idea that if you just kept being good, people would eventually see it and treat you right. But I watched as life slowly wore her down. Friends took advantage of her time. Her boss passed her over for promotion after promotion because she never played politics, never pushed back. A partner she stood by for years left the moment she asked for the same support she'd always given. And each time something like that happened, she didn't get angry. She got quieter. More confused, more hurt, like she was trying to solve a puzzle that had no solution. Until one day, she asked me something I'll never forget. Is there something wrong with being good? The world told her there wasn't, but her life kept answering otherwise. And maybe that's where you are right now. You're beginning to question everything you were taught, because what they told you would protect you, kindness, honesty, loyalty, has only seemed to make you easier to use. And maybe you've noticed how the people who seem to rise, who seem to hold the most sway, aren't necessarily the most moral. They're the ones who look moral. They say the right things. They smile at the right moments. But underneath that, there's a sharpness, a calculation, a quiet refusal to play by the same rules they preach. It's not that they have no values. It's that their values don't own them. They choose when to wear them and when to take them off. That's the part no one tells you. That in this world, morality isn't always about what's right. It's about what's useful. And if you don't learn to see that you will be outmaneuvered by those who already have, this isn't about becoming cold or cruel. It's about waking up. It's about realizing that goodness without boundaries is not virtue. It's vulnerability. Because when your kindness is automatic, it's expected. When your forgiveness is endless, it's exploited. When your honesty is unwavering, it's weaponized. The people who want control, don't need to overpower you. They just need to know what lines you'll never cross, that you'll never lie, that you'll never walk away, that you'll always give one more chance, one more apology, one more compromise. And once they know that, they don't see you as strong. They see you as predictable. So how do you hold on to your soul in a world that profits from your obedience? You learn what Lena had to learn, that your values must be chosen, not inherited. That kindness must be a decision, not a default. That loyalty is sacred only when it's mutual. That forgiveness is healing only when it's earned. Because when your morality is reflexive, it's not really yours. It's a cage someone handed you when you were too young to question it. You were raised on scripts. Turn the other cheek. Forgive and forget. Don't make a scene. But maybe it's time to ask who benefits when you live by these scripts. And why do the people who taught you these rules rarely follow them themselves? There's a reason those teachings are often aimed at the quiet ones, the gentle ones, the deeply feeling ones. You weren't just taught to be good. You were trained to be manageable. And now, you feel the cost. So no, there's nothing wrong with being good. But there is something deeply dangerous about being predictably good, about never questioning the cost of your own virtue, about giving until your hands are empty and calling it love. You are not here to be devoured. You're here to learn discernment, to understand that morality without power is not virtue, it's bait. You are not here to burn your values, but you are here to reclaim them, to hold them in your hands and ask, do these still serve me or just the people who benefit from my silence? Because when your goodness is something you choose, not something they count on, it stops being weakness. It becomes power. Lena learned the hard way. And maybe you're learning too slowly, painfully, that the world doesn't hand out rewards for being a good person. It hands out expectations. It hands out demands. And the moment you try to pull back, you're called selfish or cold or difficult. It's not just frustrating. It's disorienting. Because you spent so long trying to do things right. You followed the rules. You treated people the way you wanted to be treated. You sacrificed. You stayed silent. You waited. And what came back? Often, nothing. Sometimes even betrayal. There's a strange kind of grief that comes with waking up to this. The grief of realizing you were raised for a world that doesn't exist. A world where fairness wins, where truth protects, where compassion is reciprocated. But that world, if it ever existed, doesn't seem to live here, and so your heart starts to harden. But not in a cruel way. It hardens the way a scar does after too many wounds in the same place. It becomes harder to trust, harder to give freely. Not because you don't want to, but because you've seen what happens when you do. You've learned that some people don't want your love. They want your compliance. That some people don't care how honest you are. They just want to know where your boundaries end so they can push further. That some people hear your loyalty and think, good now. I know she won't leave. It's not paranoia. It's pattern recognition. And this is where your power begins to awaken. Not through revenge. Not through becoming someone you're not. But through realizing that your values aren't meant to trap you. They're meant to serve you. They are yours to wield, not chains to be dragged behind you. What if your kindness could be a choice instead of an obligation? What if your loyalty could be earned instead of automatic? What if your compassion could be wise, not blind? This is the shift the world never prepared you for, learning to protect your power without losing your heart. Because the goal is not to abandon who you are. The goal is to stop handing it out to people who treat it like currency they never intend to repay. There's someone else I knew, a man named Caleb. He grew up in a house where integrity was everything. His father used to say, "A man is only as good as his word." So Caleb tried. He gave people the benefit of the doubt. He never broke a promise, even when it cost him sleep, money, pride. And in business, it broke him. He trusted too easily, believed too quickly, forgave too often. His clients didn't see a man of principle. They saw someone who wouldn't fight back. And when it all fell apart, he still didn't raise his voice. He blamed himself. Maybe I should have done more. Maybe I wasn't kind enough. But kindness was never the issue. It was visibility, predictability. People knew exactly where he stood, and they used it. What Caleb had to learn, what you might be learning, is this: principles without boundaries are just invitations for exploitation. Because the moment you tell someone you always forgive, some people stop being careful with your heart. The moment you say you never walk away, some people stop giving you reasons to stay. This doesn't mean stop loving. It means start choosing. Start choosing who gets your tenderness, who earns your truth, who deserves the parts of you that were once given away like free air. You are not an open field for anyone to wander through. You are sacred ground, and not everyone has the right to step on it. That's what the world didn't teach you: how to protect yourself without becoming bitter, how to say no without guilt, how to honor your depth without drowning in it. So let me tell you something you may need to hear. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not heartless for saying, "I've given enough." You are not wrong for changing the rules when the game was rigged. Because morality, real morality, isn't about self-sacrifice without end. It's about knowing when your sacrifice no longer serves the greater good, just someone else's comfort. You are not here to be the lesson in someone else's story. You are not here to be broken so someone else can grow. You are not here to be endlessly forgiving so others can remain unchanged. If they call you selfish for choosing yourself, let them. If they call you cruel for saying no, let them. If they say you've changed, tell them I was supposed to. Because becoming who you're meant to be will require shedding who you were trained to be. And the truth is, the people who fear that transformation were often the ones who benefited from your silence the most. So, no, this isn't about becoming manipulative. This isn't about playing games or faking morality for power. It's about reclaiming the space between good and naive, between kind and used, between loyal and exploited. Because goodness is only sacred when it's chosen, not coerced. And maybe that's what Machiavelli understood that most people miss. That the appearance of morality can be used to control. That values, when wielded without power, become tools for your enemies, not for your soul. But now, you're seeing through it. You're not losing your goodness. You're learning how to guard it. You are learning how to be good on your own terms. There's a quiet kind of transformation that happens when you finally understand the cost of being the good one. It doesn't happen with a loud declaration. It doesn't need revenge or a dramatic exit. It begins in small, deliberate moments, the kind that no one sees, but you feel in your bones. Moments where you pause before you say yes. Moments where you let silence answer instead of over-explaining. Moments where you finally walk away, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself too. And that's where real strength begins, because when you stop trying to prove your goodness, you start discovering your power. Not power over others, but power over your own choices, your time, your emotional energy. And suddenly, things that used to knock you down don't anymore. Not because they don't hurt, but because you're no longer available for that kind of pain. You start to notice when guilt is being used as a leash. You feel it, that old familiar pull, the shame, the obligation, the sense that you owe someone just because they're disappointed in your boundaries. But now, something in you pauses. You don't react. You breathe. And you ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong? Or did I just break the version of me they had in their head? Because when people say, you've changed, what they often mean is, you're no longer as easy to control. And there's something liberating, even sacred, about realizing that your growth might upset people who were never really rooting for you, just relying on your silence. They'll call it selfish. They'll say you're cold. They'll say, you used to be so kind. But kindness that comes at the cost of your spirit isn't kindness. It's compliance dressed up in a virtue. You've done the bending, the explaining, the pleasing, the shrinking. You know what that feels like, how exhausting it is to always take the high road, while others build shortcuts through your boundaries. Now it's your time to rebuild, not out of bitterness, but with wisdom. You don't have to burn everything down. You just have to stop letting people into rooms they've set on fire. And sometimes that means wearing a mask, not to deceive, but to protect. You smile when you need to. You speak less around people who twist your words. You choose what parts of your heart are visible, not because you're fake, but because not everyone deserves front row seats to your soul. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you careful. It means you've learned the difference between being honest and being exposed, between being generous and being drained. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to realize morality isn't about proving yourself to the world. It's about being true to yourself when no one's watching. You don't need to argue with the ones who shame you. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them call you everything you no longer answer to. The people who need you to be endlessly forgiving are often the ones who know they'll never change. And when they weaponize your values, your kindness, your loyalty, your honesty, you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to plead your case. All you need to do is see it. Because once you see it, it stops working. You realize the guilt they try to hand you isn't yours to carry. You realize the apology they're waiting for is just a trick to pull you back into their orbit. You realize that not every moral code you were raised with was meant to make you strong. Some were just designed to keep you quiet. And when you see that, you start writing your own code. Maybe now you choose kindness, but only for those who don't treat it like a free refill. Maybe now you give second chances, but only to people who've done the work, not just said the words. Maybe now you forgive, but you don't forget what the lesson cost you. This isn't becoming hard. It's becoming sovereign. It's learning to protect your softness with edges. It's understanding that peace is not always found in surrender. Sometimes it's found in walking away. You become the person who can sit in silence while others perform outrage. The person who says, that's your version of right, not mine. The person who stops giving your power away to people who only want the performance of your goodness, not the truth of your growth. You don't need to destroy morality. You just need to stop letting other people define what it means for you. Because they'll always say things like, if you were really good, you'd stay. If you really cared, you'd give more. If you were kind, you wouldn't say no. But all of those are just ways to get you to fold. You've played that part long enough. The self-sacrificing, ever-giving, never-angry version of you that they preferred, because that version didn't challenge them. But this version, the one that has boundaries, discernment, silence, pause, this version disrupts the script. And that's exactly why it's powerful. You are allowed to rewrite what goodness looks like. You are allowed to say no without guilt. You are allowed to choose peace over performance. And when you do something unexpected, happens the people who truly love you rise with you. They don't need you to be endlessly soft. They love your strength. They respect your silence. They honor the boundaries that keep you whole. Because your goodness was never supposed to be a sacrifice. It was supposed to be a gift, not just to the world, but to you. And now, finally, you're ready to hold it with both hands. So here you are standing at the edge of everything you were taught and everything you're starting to see. The old voice still whispers, be good, be kind, be forgiving, and you can still honor that voice. But now you also know when to quiet it, when to protect yourself, when to choose presence over performance. This is where morality becomes your own. Not something inherited, not something demanded, but something chosen, reshaped, refined. Because you've learned that being moral doesn't mean being obedient. It doesn't mean letting yourself be guilted, shamed, or used just to maintain the illusion of goodness. That's not virtue. That's survival theater. And you're done playing a part that empties you. You've felt what it's like to be the one who always stays calm, who always takes the high road, who lets others feel comfortable even when you're breaking inside. You've smiled when it hurt. You've said, it's okay, when it wasn't. And you've hoped maybe this time they'll see your heart and not take advantage of it, but they didn't. Because people don't respect what they expect. And that's the final illusion, the belief that if you just keep showing up in love, the world will eventually love you back. But the truth is, love without boundaries teaches others how to take, not how to give. You don't owe anyone your silence anymore. You don't owe anyone your forgiveness, especially those who haven't even tried to earn it. You don't owe the world a watered-down version of yourself just to be seen as good. Because real goodness is quiet power. It's not loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain itself to people committed to misunderstanding it. And you are allowed to keep your goodness sacred. You are allowed to protect it with discernment. You are allowed to say, this isn't where my heart belongs anymore. You may lose people on this path. People who liked the version of you that didn't know how to say no. But in losing them, you find something far greater, your own inner allegiance. You stop performing goodness, and you start living in truth. Some will call that dangerous. They'll say, you're calculating. They'll say, you're distant. But they're only seeing what they lost control of. Your refusal to bend. Your ability to see through their language of guilt. Your silence that now speaks louder than any apology. And that's why they try so hard to pull you back. Not because you're wrong, but because you're finally free. Guilt will be their last weapon. It always is. When they can't argue with your boundaries, they'll try to make you feel bad for needing them. They'll say things like, I thought you were better than this, or you've changed. And the truth is, you have. You've grown out of the scripts. You've stopped being predictable. And in doing so, you've become powerful. Powerful, not because you're ruthless, but because you're sovereign. You no longer hand out loyalty to those who squander it. You no longer offer softness where there's no safety. You no longer stay quiet just to be liked. You understand now. Your morality doesn't need to be visible. It needs to be intentional. You don't owe anyone a display. You don't need to be the loudest in the room. You don't need to prove that you're the better person. You just need to be whole, and that often looks like choosing peace over pleasing. When you walk into a room now, you don't carry your goodness like a shield. You wear it like a secret, not to impress, but to protect. Because not everyone needs access to your heart. Some only need to see your silence. You've become unreadable not because you're hiding, but because you've stopped explaining. You don't clarify your kindness anymore. You don't beg to be understood. You don't justify your distance. You simply allow your actions to speak. That is the new morality, one born not from obedience, but from clarity. And with that clarity comes freedom. The freedom to forgive slowly, to speak carefully, to say no even when it disappoints, to walk away even when you're called heartless, to remain quiet when they want you to explain. This is not cruelty. This is control. And control doesn't mean domination. It means ownership. Ownership of your energy, your space, your capacity, your boundaries. You've earned that. You've earned the right to rewrite the rules. You are no longer available for manipulation disguised as virtue. You are no longer a participant in guilt-based performances. You are no longer the one who bends first, bleeds first, breaks first, just to keep the peace. You are the peace, and that means not everyone will be able to stand in your presence anymore. Some will leave. Some will lash out. But the ones who stay, the ones who rise with you, will see the real you. The one who is kind and powerful. The one who is generous and discerning. The one who can forgive, but also protect. So let this be your new script. Kindness is sacred, not automatic. Forgiveness is earned, not demanded. Loyalty is mutual, not owed. And love starts with you. Let the world think what it wants. Let them call it selfish. Let them say you've become cold. The truth is, you've never been clearer. You've never been freer. You've never been more dangerous, not because you've abandoned your values, but because now you choose them. And when you choose your morality, you finally stop being ruled by it. You become the writer of your own code, and that is the quiet, unstoppable power they never saw coming.